made it near the end of our game board to adulthood. And I've broken adulthood up into two sections: middle adulthood, which is 35-ish to whenever we retire, to elderhood, which is the thing that's considered post-retirement. Now, it's bizarre to myself to realize I am now in middle adulthood as a 37-year-old, but middle adulthood is really the time where we're focused on our careers. We're now with the people that we wanted to spend our life with. And so Erik Erikson believed the next big psychosocial dilemma was the notion of generativity versus stagnation. Generativity was the idea, are you giving back? Is your day-to-day life meaningful? Are you going to impact generations to come? He thought this could be done through work, especially if you had a helping occupation like a teacher, a social worker, or a nurse, but also could be done in a non-helping occupation, like maybe you're discovering something for science, or going to Mars, or finding a vaccine. Importantly, you could also get a sense of generativity not through your occupation. You could get through raising a family, or adopting animals, or volunteering, or doing some work through a charity. And so it would have some sort of meaning. Versus stagnation is the idea that maybe you had a run-of-the-mill job that didn't matter. Maybe you had an office job where you just did dull paperwork that sat on a shelf that nobody read, that never impacted policies. And you decided that that's just not going to cut it anymore. Stagnation will give this sense of emptiness, versus generativity would give this sense of fulfillment and accomplishment and connecting with others. Then also in middle adulthood, we can also see the romantic relationships and attachments play out further in terms of the longevity of marriage, and if people are more likely to get divorced. People can certainly get divorced even with secure attachments, but people with insecure attachments might be at a greater risk. In addition, we can see how the attachment can play out with your own children in that second generational spiral. It can have this transgenerational effect in that people that were much more standoffish and avoidant, they may do one of two things. They might be standoffish and avoidant and become ghosts, where they're just never present for their kids. Or they might become this really strict, rigid parent who doesn't really cater to their kids. They aren't really warm or there for them. They tell them how it is and they have to do it. So I call those the brick wall parents, the ones that are strict and not forgiving. People that were much more anxious in their relationships before might become more anxious and intrusive towards their own children, and might develop into helicopter parents, where they're constantly intruding the privacy of their children. Or they might be so worried that they need their kids to like them that they become the very permissive jellyfish parents who have no backbone and who just give and are so flexible they give their kids whatever they need. And finally, those with a more secure attachment style, I like to think of the metaphor of a drum. A drum you can play music on, it obviously has some flexibility, but it's not something that's going to bust through tapping it. It can take a few beatings and make musical music that way. And so this is the idea that you know who you are, you're not going to cave to the pressure from your kids, but you're also going to have some flexibility for your kids. And so you're going to offer them a secure base in moving forward. Now, as we get into elderhood, we start to see lots of major physical differences. This is obviously when mobility issues happen. It's when other health comorbidities start to become popular, like things like cancer or heart disease or diabetes. We also see major cognitive declines when it comes to things like dementia, and things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's might be impacting how one thinks. But two big things I want to make a point of is menopause and andropause. So menopause happens to people who are menstruating, and this is when menstruation stops. This can lead to all sorts of interesting things like hot flashes, but also changes how they relate to others. Often what happens in menopause is a person who is very caring and other-oriented becomes less so, and maybe they're more interested in pursuing their own interests for a while. And andropause is a person who, very high in testosterone, their testosterone decreases quite rapidly in their 50s and 60s. And so someone who had higher testosterone, who's very boisterous and loud and dominant, they might become much more soft and sentimental all of a sudden. So we can almost see a bit of a gender role reversal if you have a heterosexual couple and they're experiencing menopause and andropause around the same time. And finally, where this unit ends is the last stage of psychosocial development, with integrity and despair, as we look towards the end of life. As we look towards death, Erikson believed that some of us can look towards death with integrity. And this was the idea that we have a sense of fulfillment. We're happy with our decisions in life. We had a good life. We traveled. We had loved ones. We had a good career. We have good memories. And we're ready. Versus other people don't feel ready. No matter how old they are, there's unresolved conflicts. There's unresolved wishes. And they feel like they've ran out of time too quick. And so being able to move forward and face death with that acceptance and integrity can often help the people around you with their grief a lot faster as well. Thank you for playing the game of life. We've made it to the end of Unit 9, or our first unit in Psych 201. Well done.